Tonight, we take you inside the Olympics to see how Calgary school kids may soon know more about the games than their parents. Get an update on Mount Allan and the men's downhill. Take a look at Team Canada before it takes on the world in Izvestia. Find out whether the experts will allow ski skating in World Cup cross-country skiing. Catch a high-flying glimpse of freestyle skiing, now an Olympic demonstration sport. Get the news on Sun Ice, the official clothing supplier to the Calgary Games. Discover how a forgotten sport, biathlon, is making a comeback in Canada. Find out what it feels like to fly down a dangerous bobsleigh course. And learn how the Alberta Sports Council has changed sports forever in Alberta. Tonight, as we go inside the Olympics with host Gord Kelly.
Good evening and welcome to our show. I'm Gord Kelly. Tonight you'll see what's been happening over the past summer as Olympic facilities near completion and athletes get into some serious training. Biathlon is the most recent of our current Winter Olympic events, and in this edition of Inside the Olympics, you'll get a background look at the sport and how Alberta athletes are training for it.
Biathlon, an exciting combination of cross-country ski racing and .22 caliber rifle shooting at fixed targets, has been an Olympic sport since 1960. However, Canada has only competed once, in 1968 in Grenoble, with a military squad drawn from bases across the country. A year later, the military disbanded its team and the sport died. However, following joint efforts between the military and civilians in 1978, biathlon experienced a rebirth which has resulted in a unique marriage between the two programs, especially here in Alberta.
I agree that it is a very unique marriage that we have here in Alberta. And to begin with, from the military side, we do have our own integral structure. That is, our biathletes progress from brigade to Canadian Army to international military competition. Now, in the process of training our athletes to be involved in those competitions, they, at a certain point, become competent and often qualify for provincial and national teams. And so at that point, there is a very functional interface between the military and the civilian.
With recent improving World Championship results, Canada should field its best ever Olympic team in 1988. To that goal, extensive year-round training programs continued this past summer in Calgary and Canmore among civilian and military teams, which have made Alberta Canada's top biathlon region since 1981. According to Provincial Biathlon Technical Director Dr. Veli Ninema of Calgary, such continuous long-term training is crucial.
Biathlon is an endurance sport and therefore requires, first and foremost, very high cardiovascular endurance. And that takes many years of training to achieve. I think biathlon ranks in the top 3 sports in the world as far as the requirement for cardiovascular endurance is concerned. Secondly, it needs strength. With the present skating style of skiing, it requires very high upper body strength, arm strength. That being the second aspect. Thirdly, the person has to be very lean. Body fats of 6 to 8% are quite normal.
Because so much of biathlon is cross-country skiing, the mimicking of on-snow techniques during the off-season is essential. During the dryland period, athletes ski walk with or without poles to strengthen leg and arm muscles for traditional diagonal skiing. Ski bounding with poles, a more vigorous and demanding exercise, further increases the cardiovascular or heart and lung capacity to train and race. Rollerboard workouts primarily concentrate on upper body development to guarantee the efficient yet powerful arm movements needed in both traditional and skating techniques. With growing emphasis on ski skating, even in biathlon, cycling is also proving handy for building leg muscles related to skating movements. However, 2 key elements towards skating preparation in the dryland season are roller skiing and roller skating. Roller skating, the most recent method, uses a typical hockey skate boot with polyurethane wheels usable only on paved or cemented surfaces. Skates and ski poles used together allow skiers to simulate high-speed on-snow skating. The more familiar use of roller skis also enables mimicking of on-snow traditional and ski skating movements. The second component to biathlon is .22 caliber rifle shooting. The rifle generally weighs between 8 to 11 pounds. A maximum 4 clips, each containing 5 bullets, are carried on the stock for easy access. Mounted on top of the barrel opening is a simple foresight. A single action bolt ejects and loads bullets one at a time. For the relay event only, 2 extra clips with 3 bullets apiece are also attached to the stock. A stock butt hook helps steady the rifle during the standing shoot. And a unique over-the-shoulders harness enables the athlete to ski unhindered with the rifle on his or her back. Although women worldwide are training year-round, they unfortunately won't compete in the '88 Olympics as the IOC has not approved their events. One of those women is Yvonne Visser of Calgary, who nevertheless is training hard for domestic and other international events.
Well, next year I plan to make my first trip to the World Championships, and I plan to place in the top 25. And from there, each year I'll try and better at least 5 positions, and by '88 I should be working on a medal, hopefully, in the World Championships.
And looking at very long term, it's worthwhile to keep at it for quite a few years yet?
Yes, I have a lot to learn about myself as well as the sport, so I'm going to stay in it.
Hopefully by 1992, women will invade the male bastion of Olympic biathlon competition. As for Alberta's men, Dr. Ninema is cautious yet optimistic in his appraisal of their Olympic hopes.
As far as expecting medals in the Olympics, that may be beyond our reach for '88. It takes many years of solid work to produce medalists in the Olympics. And above and beyond the good work, we'll need some extremely good luck as well. However, I would think that the Albertans will have a solid showing in the Olympics. At the moment, we are ranked 12th nation in the UIPMB, and I would hope that we can pull the ranking up quite a few spots by '88.
To refute what has been said on occasion, biathlon today is not a dead sport. With over 700 military and civilian skiers involved in Alberta alone, increasing public awareness of this amateur activity will aid the steady growth of the sport as it prepares for Calgary's biathlon competitions in Canmore in '88.
It's great to see Alberta coming on strong in a sport that was all but forgotten a few years ago. And although women biathletes will not be competing in Calgary's Olympics, it seems a viable possibility for the 1990s. Now, on the creative side of sports, you're going to see the graceful, often reckless and breathtaking moves of our newest Olympic demonstration sport, freestyle skiing, with reporter Marilyn Denis.
Welcome demonstration sport to the '88 Winter Games will be freestyle skiing. Aesthetically pleasing and athletically very demanding. Recently we had a chance to talk to Peter Judge. He was the 1983 combined freestyle world champ, and now he's got a new title, and that's the coach of the Canadian freestyle team. You're quite young, you're 27 years old. Back in '83 you won the combined national championships. Is that why they picked you, or did...
Well, that was part of the reason, of course. It gave me a great deal of experience in dealing with competitive athletics, particularly in our sport. Also, I think I was fortunate enough to get the job because I have enough organizational skills to put the team together, because when the sport was young, we had to do a lot of things on our own. And so in that way I was able to acquire the skills to be able to put the team together and put the training programs together, etc.
Let's talk about competition. Now there are 3 categories. Can you explain them?
Yes, there's basically, as you said, there's 3 events. There's ballet skiing, which is a lot like figure skating. It's done over a 2-minute and 30-second period of time. You have a set course that's a lot like a football field, about double the length of a football field and tilted up on about an 11-degree angle. And as I said, it's a lot like figure skating. Then there's the aerials, which most people kind of relate to freestyle skiing. It's very spectacular, multiple somersaults, and then there's the mogul skiing, which is very fast skiing through large bumps. as far as the judging goes, in the moguls you're judged on how well you turn, the technical aspects of your turn. They want to see good, solid, carved skiing. And they look for air and also your speed. In the aerials, you're judged on your form, your air, and your landing. And then in the ballet, you receive a score, much to figure skating again, where you get a technical difficulty score and a choreography score. Basically, as I said, there are the 3 individual events, and then after that, if you compete in all 3 events, you're eligible for combined placing. And through that, there's actually 4 events that you can compete in.
Where did this all start?
That's hard to say. The Americans will say it started in the United States, and the Canadians will say it started in Canada. I think it started in Europe, actually, a long, long time ago in the early 1900s. There was people, you know, just playing around doing strange things on skis, and just has progressed since then up until the present state. There is a tremendous amount of fear involved when you're first learning, and it just takes a lot of training and a lot of time and a lot of practice to overcome the fear, you know, through the mileage. And I just don't think that we've had athletes who have been exposed to the proper coaching and the proper training to be able to make those strides. And now, as I said, we are starting to make those strides.
All right, so now in '88, demonstration sport. What are you guys going to do?
Basically, what we've been told will happen is that the top 20 or top 10 men combined and the top 10 specialists from the previous year's World Cup and the top 5 women and 5 combined from the previous year's World Cup will be competing in Calgary. So what it basically will be, it'll be the most elite of the elite will be competing in Calgary in a competition. It will be sort of an invitational competition, but also a demonstration sport.
Freestyle skiing, certainly exciting to watch and very athletically demanding. We look forward to seeing it at the '88 Winter Games. Marilyn Denis for Inside the Olympics.
Coming up, the FIS is pressured into allowing ski skating in the World Cup, revolutionizing the sport. But will we see it in the Olympics? Next year, thanks to OCO's education program, Canadian school children will be learning the ABCs of Olympic sport. And find out what has been done with Mount Allan to shape up the men's downhill when we return after this.
Welcome back to Inside the Olympics. The International Ski Federation has granted technical approval to Mount Allan, the $25 million site of our Olympic downhill events. Full approval will not come until the courses, especially the controversial men's downhill, have been skied. Earlier this year, FIS President Mark Hodler found the men's downhill course too flat for Olympic competition, and he called for sweeping changes. OCO's Vice President of Sports, Brian Murphy, brings us up to date on those changes.
All of the recommendations that were made to us have been fulfilled except one, and it was the addition of approximately 3 meters of dirt at the first bump going into triple trouble at the bottom of the men's downhill. But all of the suggestions with regards to the difficulty in the flat section, the additional trees that had to be cut, and particularly the compression area coming off the very steep section going into the flats, all of that work had been completed by the end of August.
What was the nature of those recommendations? Was it a change of the piste itself to take it through tougher terrain?
No, not at all. It was a matter, well, particularly with regards to this controversial section, if you like, going into the flat area. There's a very, very steep section coming down the top third of the mountain. And once that section is finished with, the skier is going at the fastest speed he will be going on the entire run. Well, then he goes into the flat area, and the flat area is approximately 10 or 12%. And the International Ski Federation, be it Mark Hodler or Bernard Russi, our course inspector, they were very concerned with this compression, with this transitional point, if you like. And they, at that time, they requested a tunnel, in other words, to fill up this actual transition period, because you have to keep in mind that you are crossing another recreational ski run at that particular point. When they returned in August, they removed the request with regards to a tunnel, and they asked for additional fill in that particular section. And they asked for approximately 3 meters of fill, and that work was completed within 2 months. Within 2 weeks. So now it's no longer a very difficult transition period, it's a very gradual one. If we require more fill in that particular section, then we'd like to do it with snow.
Over the long, hot summer, provincial employees were busily changing the face of Mount Allan. Nikiska as it's now called. As winter approaches, the towers are up and the chairlift is almost ready to operate. After some routine delays, construction is moving again on the day lodge, and interior work will continue over the winter. And despite the monsoons of autumn, the pipe and hydrants for the snowmaking system are being installed. Nor is all of this preparation premature. International commitments aside, both OCO and the province of Alberta, which is solely responsible for the ski hill, want to avoid the embarrassing last-minute glitches that plagued Sarajevo in '84.
The men's downhill course in Sarajevo, they had some difficulty with it, to the point that the International Ski Federation appointed their chief of alpine courses, a chap named Hubert Spies out of Innsbruck, Austria, to work with the Sarajevo Organizing Committee to upgrade this men's downhill course. Well, they were going to test that course in February of 1983. And after Spies made some changes to the course in the fall of '82 and in January of '83, the World Cup skiers, the best skiers at that particular time, arrived in Sarajevo for the World Cup men's downhill. Now, to make the run a little bit more exciting than what it was, Spies added 3 bumps at the very end to it, at the very end of the actual run, and keeping in mind that it had never been tested before, he had the mounds built so high. Well, sure enough, at the World Cup competition, the best skier in the world were racing down that course at full tilt, and they just about killed a few of them because they went off the first jump, and instead of landing on a slope which is still going downhill, which is good for landing, for compression, they were landing on flat ground. And they had 1 or 2 very serious injuries, to keeping in mind that these skiers are on a World Cup circuit, and that particular competition is only one of 9 or 10 for that winter. That after that, the International Ski Federation made it absolutely mandatory that if you want to have a World Cup competition on an individual slope, you have to have the course tested the year before. In other words, if the mountains are too big, if you put in too much dirt or too much snow or whatever the case might be, it has to be tested the year before you have the World Cup. So when you apply that situation to Calgary, we had the games in 1988. We have to test our facilities where possible in 1987, and in that regard, we have now booked 5 World Cup competitions for March of 1987. Well, now it's necessary that we have a test competition on that mountain in 1986.
That test, held in February or March at Nikiska, will not be a World Cup, but an FIS-sanctioned NORAM event with North American skiers 1 level below the World Cup. Now, just around the corner from Mount Allan, our crews were on hand to film the North American Cross-Country Ski Championships in Spray Lakes last spring. Since the FIS decided to allow ski skating in the World Cup, athletes have been busily training to perfect that technique. But it's still uncertain what form the sport will take in Calgary, and we'll hear that report now with Jarl Omholt-Jensen.
Threatened by possible boycotts by anti-skating factions and desires of pro-skating groups to form their own racing circuits, the FIS Congress in Vancouver voted in May to compromise on the issue of ski skating versus traditional cross-country skiing techniques. The decision means this season's men's and women's World Cup circuits will be half traditional and half ski skating, in an effort to determine what form the sport will take for the '87 World Championships and '88 Olympics. Over the decades since the first games of 1924 in Chamonix, France, traditional diagonal and double poling techniques have been dominant. However, the '80 Olympics of Lake Placid marked the last time those traditional movements were used exclusively, as Sarajevo '84 saw the debut of ski skating in the games, primarily on flat or slightly downhill sections of trail. With the development of the uphill V-skate stride, which closely resembles the classic herringbone climbing technique, but which is so much faster, skating exploded internationally last winter, setting the stage for the showdown between pro and con forces. The FIS compromise means that traditional strides aren't dead and skating does not yet have the free rein many wanted. But how long this lasts is anyone's guess. Regardless, this season, century-old classic techniques will still be needed by all athletes competing on the World Cup circuit. Diagonal skiing, the best known and most refined, is a flowing scissor-like motion of one leg kicking against the snow, causing a transfer of body weight to the opposite and forward gliding ski. Alternately used poles contribute to balance and additional push and glide. On flat or gradual downhill sections, double poling is usually faster than diagonal, as the skier pushes simultaneously with his poles while standing on parallel gliding skis. Double poling with a kick off one leg can further increase speed and is generally the fastest of the traditional or classic styles when used on flat or gradually sloped downhill tracks. The recent arrival of single step and uphill V-step skating, which occurred almost simultaneously worldwide, bodes well for many skiers, including ours, according to Canadian cross-country head coach Marty Hall.
Well, since we're such a new nation, we've been doing cross-country skiing for a long time, but the sport exploded 10 years ago. So it's just going to mean that entry into the sport probably will be just that much more simple. Taking away the waxing, the diagonal technique, it's something that is common and everyday to the Scandinavian skiers. Not so easy for us to learn. And of course we go back to ground zero with a new technique like this. The Scandinavians have to learn it, the Russians, the North Americans, the Middle Europeans. We're all even Stevens, so I think it gives us a chance to close the gap a little bit on them.
For most skiers who didn't want to be left behind in skiing abilities, the change from classic to skating did take some effort, as national team member Dennis Lawrence of Regina explains.
Yeah, for the first while we were pretty hesitant as to whether we could skate every day. You know, we go out and we do a skating workout or a skating race, and then we turn around and we want a diagonal the next day because we thought it'd be too hard and you'd get too tired. But after a month or so of that, your muscles got used to it. It was a fairly minor change in what muscles you were using. And I think it took about a month or 6 weeks and people are pretty well used to it.
Adapting was also a challenge for Canada's top male World Cup performer, Pierre Harvey of Quebec.
Oh, for sure, yeah, the muscle have to get adjusted to it because it's quite different. It's more power. It's not so much cardiovascular, so the legs and the bums hurt a little bit at the beginning just to get used because every day you ask a lot and you push hard. So, but after 2-3 weeks, we were really adapted and it was really good.
To give you an idea on the comparison between classic and skating styles, we had Harvey ski against teammate Marie-André Masson. In the first demonstration, Harvey skis classic diagonal while Masson skates, followed by the reverse. And as Dennis Lawrence points out, skating has its advantages over classic.
When we were diagonaling a lot, the times per kilometer were usually around 3 minutes, 2:50, maybe a little over 3 minutes. And now, quite often we're getting down 2:35, 2:40, even below 2:30 sometimes when it's really fast conditions. So this is taking, you know, a 15-kilometer race is taking 5 or 6 or 8 minutes off the total time.
And as a matter of interest, Harvey could benefit from the Mixed Technique World Cup Series this season, as he remains open to skating and classic skiing.
For sure, what I like, it's because it's faster, and we are here to race. So in the World Cup, if I want to be with the guy and compete and have some result, I have to skate. But I still like the diagonal, the technique that I did since a long time. And physically, I like the move and I like the old technique. But I'm here to compete, so if I want to go fast, I have to go this way. And I know that in the future it will be skating because we cannot go backward. We know, everyone knows that it's faster, so everyone has to adjust and go this way now.
This unique 86 World Cup test season for men and women will be closely monitored by the FIS in order to determine what likely form of cross-country skiing we'll see in Calgary. Regardless if it's pure skating, pure classic, or a mixture of both, Coach Marty Hall feels the result won't be negative to the future well-being of cross-country skiing in general.
I feel yes, but I don't think it's going to do anything to destroy our sport. I think the middle-level people will still do the traditional step, and they'll still wax, and the racers will use the skating step. And I think everybody appreciates the fact that we're trying to get from A to B as fast as we possibly can. And as the sport evolves, that's the way it goes.
Stay with us for stories on Sun Ice, the official clothing supplier to the Calgary Olympics. Find out when the speed skating oval will be ready for action and when the ski jumps will be ready for testing at Canada Olympic Park. Then, visit an elementary class to see how children will be involved in the Calgary Olympics and learn how a children's game evolved into the exhilarating sport of bobsleigh. All coming up on Inside the Olympics.
Welcome back to Inside the Olympics and a story to make you proud to be a Calgarian. Sun Ice, our local manufacturer of outerwear, has won the official clothing contract for the '88 Olympics, beating out its world competition. Oco and Sun Ice have just negotiated a $1 million transaction to supply outerwear for all Olympic athletes and personnel, plus the right to manufacture a line of garments for the public bearing the Olympic insignia. The business started with a mom, dad, and 3 daughters doing all of the designing and manufacturing. In the past 6.5 years, Sun Ice has grown to employ 125 people and sells across Canada and the U.S. And even with 2 years to go before the Olympics, Sun Ice will have to expand its present facilities and hire more staff to contend with the Olympic order, an estimated 10,000 garments. As to what they'll look like, the colors and styles for each category are still being decided. But within 6 months, the first samples of each category should be available for showing. This is a special challenge for any clothing manufacturer, needless to say. Some well-developed athletes require a different fit than the simple small, medium, and large. The manufacturer has to take into account the special body proportions of each sport. And in some cases, for example, luge, bobsled, and speed skating, the competitors will actually compete in the official Olympic garments. It's up to the clothing supplier to make sure the garments fit and move well in competition. Although sizing and design pose particular challenges, the rewards for Sun Ice come in the massive media exposure. For 10 days in 1988, everywhere you look, everyone connected with the Olympics will be wearing Sun Ice. And for the official clothing supplier, that's what it's all about. Our new $35 million speed skating oval at the University of Calgary is also getting some international exposure. This is the world's first 400-meter enclosed oval, and delegates from around the globe have come to view the project under construction. The roof should be completed by next May, when work will begin on the floor with its refrigerated slab. When finished, the building will seat 4,000 spectators. Although the International Skating Union had planned its World Sprint Championships for February of 1987, project planners say the building won't be ready then. If the ISU can wait until April of '87, athletes will have a chance to test the brand new track. Meanwhile, at Canada Olympic Park, work is progressing on the ski jumps. They'll be working throughout the next few months to prepare the 30, 50, 70, and 90-meter jumps for testing early next year. The Judges Tower and other architectural work should be completed later in the spring. And Alberta athletes will be able to train right here at home in their own Olympic site by next winter. At a press conference this past July, the Canadian Ski Association announced its national coaching staff for ski jumping. Andreas Saley was named as head coach and national teams director, assisted by Willie Purstel and Rupert Herner to develop the ski jumping program. At the same conference, 2 promising young jumpers, Colin Capel and Kirk Allen, whom you met on our previous show, were promoted to the Alberta elite team, comprising the top jumpers in the province. Olympic athletes, the winter sports, the nations that participate are all a part of a new curriculum for Calgary schools. And here's a report now on the ABCs of World Olympics.
We've heard so much about the building of the Olympics, everything from downhill runs to athletic domes. But there's another building process occurring in our city, and that's in our educational system. Last spring, Elko 88 introduced their education curriculum project, an information kit including how Calgary is involved in the Olympics, as well as the Olympics past and present. The instigator of the project, Jeanette King.
First of all, the Olympic Charter says that one of the aims of the Olympic movement is to educate young people through sport. So we took this a little farther, got all sorts of different background information. We had about 75 volunteers in total, gathering background information, teachers who became parts of writing teams to put curriculum together with Olympic content. Our first curriculum, which is for grades K to 6, is in its 4th draft right now, and we hope it'll be ready to go to print this next month. The other 2 will have very similar background material, so they're not all starting from scratch. And our goal is to have them in all Alberta schools by September of 1986, a year from now. The first theme that we're developing is about the Olympic movement itself, its traditions, its history, its symbols, and going right into the studies about the International Olympic Committee and the Canadian representatives on the IOC. The next theme is about people who participate in the Olympics, the athletes, the coaches, the judges, with an emphasis on the Canadian athletes who have done well in past Olympics. We really do want to stress the Canadian aspect of the Olympics. We seem to know too little about our own countrymen. Then we will address the 9 Winter Olympic sports, how they are trained for, the equipment that is used, how they are judged, as well as the demonstration sports, which we'll have in Calgary. We'll also talk about the nations that participate in the Winter Olympic Games, the polar nations, their similarities, their differences, so that the students would be able to understand and appreciate the many different cultures that will be represented here. And the final theme that we have is Calgary as a host city. What does it take to be a host? What type of organizing is necessary to be a host for the Olympics? Those sorts of questions are all dealt with for the children.
Mrs. King, where did the idea of the Olympic Curriculum Project come from?
Well, I was asked by the organizing committee if I would head a committee like this. I guess I had spoken once too often and once too loudly about the need for this in the schools. You see, of the 14 Winter Olympic Games that have been held, 10 of them have been in Europe, and in our travels there, it became very evident that European people have been brought up with the Olympics. Schools are closed. The countrymen and communities turn out to cheer on their athletes. They know who the competitors are and the records to be broken. It becomes very much a world-class event that they cherish as just that. And with Canadians not having been exposed to this sort of thing, they didn't have the opportunity to really understand and appreciate what is coming here. So I suppose that that type of background thought went into seeing if we could start getting some Olympic information into the school system.
OCO 88 would like to look at these informational kits as their legacy to Calgary students. And with this form of education, who knows, we may be seeing future administrators or even athletes of the 1992 Winter Olympics. Marilyn Denis for Inside the Olympics.
Still to come on Inside the Olympics, meet the Alberta Sports Council, the group that wants to make sure we're cheering for Albertans in '88. Learn what makes bobsledders compete in a sport which can sometimes claim a life. And find out how hockey coach Dave King will put together a winning team by 1988. Coming up after this.
Welcome back to our show. Until recently, the only serious sledding being done in this province was by children after school. Bobsleigh has traditionally been a European sport, and the Europeans are good at it. But now Albertans are interested, and they're going all out for this exciting, high-speed sport. What's more bracing, more exhilarating, more fun than going sledding? Wherever there's snow on the ground, people have been doing it for generations, getting high by going downhill. With time, however, this gentle pursuit has developed into something downright hair-raising. Bobsledding, a major event in the modern Winter Olympic Games, and one in which Canadians, with one notable exception, have not done very well.
Sarajevo was a very disappointing year for the team, but since then they've hired new coaches and implemented a new selection program where the athletes that are being presently trained, I'm sure will justify the efforts that are put in and be very competitive in 1988.
Is our equipment as good as the rest of the world's?
Our equipment has been slowly upgraded as funds have become available, and we will, I'm sure, by '88 have very competitive equipment, yes.
The sleek East German team, East Germany 2.
Their sleds, which, as you know, have been outlawed now, they have to go back to the basic type of sled. And I think that if you just look at the East German training program, where most of them are in the Army, and they spend most of their training on the bobsled run or on dryland conditioning program. I don't think they're out doing a lot of marching and things that we assume would be part of the Army type of thing. But, you know, we're getting there too. We're starting to train. As you know, we're out here in the middle of the summer training and trying to catch up to them, so hopefully it'll pay off in the winter.
There's more to bobsledding than the sled, of course. There's the hill, the run. Over the summer, Calgarians have watched expectantly as construction of the finest bobsled and luge run in the world was begun on the city's western edge at Canada Olympic Park. Nearing completion now, this will soon be the site of some breathtaking Olympic excitement.
It'll be a long, fully refrigerated, all-weather track. It'll be the best track in the world, I'm convinced.
The best in the world?
I'm absolutely convinced that the design, and the fact that we have a bob facility about 20 minutes from International Airport with on the outskirts of a city of 600,000 people is absolutely unique in the world.
To what extent are bob runs unique? Must they not be standard if records are to be compared from one to the other?
Well, there have been some standardization moves done in that the start of our run will be a 2% gradient, which is going to be the world standard for future runs. We have 8 right-hand curves, 7 left-hand curves. So all runs develop their unique character, you know, through the construction and design, but you can't really compare times from run to run. You have to compare times amongst teams on a particular run.
The objective in bobsledding can be put quite simply. It is to go as fast as you can and survive. It's a sport that requires special athletes. Special not only from the point of view of their physical attributes, but special too from the point of view of their motivation. Bobsledders are among those athletes who know that speed and danger can be powerful intoxicants.
That's the thrill of the sport, I think, because when you're done, your heart's beating. You're feeling that much better about it, and you've gone through everything. I mean, you hear stories, people die in the sport, and the thrill of going through it all, the speed.
It looks from the outside that you're moving so fast, in fact, that you couldn't possibly control that missile, or if you could only marginally do so. You'd be just guiding it slightly. Is that accurate?
To a point, to a point. Up top, it's very slow. The sled has not enough cohesion on the ice because the speed is low. In fact, the speed is very good for the steering because you're more adhesive to the ice. So any little movement done by the front runners moves the sled more or less like steering a car. So the faster you go, the better. The equivalent of running the race, about 3/4 of the way down, your heart and respiratory rate would be about the same as running a fast 1,500-meter run. So you get the idea that it's very, very strenuous. It's not just sitting on there and going for a ride down a toboggan. It's very, very difficult, and it takes a lot out of you as far as the adrenaline. And you, as a driver, you have to be coordinated and have your hand-eye coordination working at peak capacity to be able to negotiate the turns, because the sled doesn't, and I think this is a misconception, the sled doesn't turn on its own. You just don't lean into a corner and it turns. You have to steer it, and this is where a good part of the hand-eye coordination comes in. So there's a great deal of coordination involved, and the adrenaline that you receive from it it's just hard to describe. You get off the sled, you're in the middle of the winter, perspiration's dripping down there, you're out of breath, your heart's pounding in your chest, your arms are weak, your legs are rubbery, and you don't understand why, but that's what bobsledding's all about.
Peter Marchuk is so committed to the sport, he quit his job here and has left for Europe to spend the winter training and competing. It will take intense training to achieve the level of experience that now exists among the Swiss and the East Germans, so good luck to our team in Austria. Just how many athletes could Alberta field in the 1988 Winter Games? It's only speculation at the moment, but efforts by the Alberta Sport Council should increase provincial chances.
The world record is 2:04.04.
Spurred on by the Calgary Olympics, a group of sport enthusiasts and sport bodies sought a unified voice to promote, aid, and develop Alberta athletes to these games. Formed in April of '84, the Sport Council, which is responsible for 76 amateur sports, operates on an annual budget of $8 million. An additional $1 million per year till 1988 has been allocated specifically for 10 Winter Olympic sports. Max Gibb, Council Managing Director, says the focus for the next few years will be on those 10.
Here we are going to host one of the greatest world competitions, maybe the greatest at that point in time, and it would be a shame if Albertans weren't a part of it. Don't know if you know, there were only 2 Albertans in Sarajevo in 1984. Out of a possible, depends how you count up the figures, but in the neighborhood of 126 potential Canadians could have been at Sarajevo and can be at Calgary. Only 2 are Albertans. Alberta traditionally hasn't been strong in Winter Olympic sports. We do well in Summer Olympic sports, but not in Winter Olympic. There have only been 2 medals ever won by Albertans in Winter Olympics in the history of the Winter Olympic program. But we're about to change that. We've set an objective of having not less than 20% of the competitors Albertans on the Canadian team, and we're comfortable at this stage of the game that that's going to happen.
Could that 20% factor be reflected in cross-country skiing? According to the sport's provincial technical director, Nils Vikander, although a tough goal to reach, it might be a possibility.
I think it's going to be a challenging objective. Other parts of the country, particularly Quebec, that has the highest profile program, they're going to obviously go for a substantial proportion of the Canadian team. Over the 2.5 to 3 years that we have before the games now, it's hard to visualize brand new people coming into top-level cross-country skiing to the extent that they're going to be able to make the Olympic team. But we certainly do have some skiers on stream right now who, if they can continue their development, and there's no reason why they should not, I think they will have a very good chance of making the team.
Despite the fact that Alberta lags behind the rest of Canada in cross-country skiing, Vikander is optimistic about current Sport Council efforts and feels present programs will produce big dividends in the long run.
Definitely. I think we're, realistically knowing the fairly long time periods that it takes to develop a top-level cross-country skier, we're certainly looking ahead more to 92 and 96 than to get some very, very quick spin-offs for 88, although that is certainly still within the realm of possibility.
Just how can the Council guarantee these optimistic results? According to Provincial Biathlon Technical Director Dr. Veli Ninema, one of the mandates is athlete funding.
Key or the main element might be the support of the provincial team. We're able to attend the major events and the team is subsidized. And in this way we're able to support the athletes who bear the most of the cost involved in sport. However, the Sport Council funding does assist and help to carry the burden.
Biathlon and cross-country are not the only winter sports receiving additional assistance towards their 88 Olympic goals. Hockey and the remaining 7 sports will also benefit in the short run, and Gibb feels the long-term gains beyond 88 will be just as exciting.
So come 88, when the Olympics are over, everyone's going to be excited. The facilities will be here. The network is established. The excitement and the enthusiasm of business who have felt part of what I think will be a tremendous success will even be more lucrative with their funding. And in effect, we will become the winter sports center of the world. I really believe that that's a real possibility.
In a moment, you'll hit the ice with Team Canada as Coach Dave King discusses the risks to the Olympic program over the next few years when we return.
Canadian national hockey is in a familiar position, unable as yet to recruit young professionals and yet up against what amounts to professional teams on the world circuit. The Olympic program is only one route open to Canadian players, and competition for those players is fierce. Still, several promising recruits have joined Team Canada, notably Jeff Greenlaw, and his commitment could help sway other young players to the Olympic team. The national program is looking good, according to Coach Dave King.
We've done fairly well in the area of recruiting, and we've got some good young players here, but there's no question some of the players we would like to have joined our program are not available to us this year, probably next season, but for the most part, we've got a good young team, and they've progressed on the ice quite well, and our performance so far has been really a pleasant surprise for us. We've done very, very well against the European teams in Finland we played against, and also our NHL schedule's gone well, so at this point in time, we're quite pleased.
Are you as good as you look?
I think in Finland, we had a situation there where their teams were on the ice about a month longer than we were, so winning 4 out of 8 was really a big surprise for us. We were very pleased. Coming back in the NHL games, Gord, I think with our conditioning edge was a factor in the first couple of games against Vancouver, against Los Angeles, but it's been a great experience for the players to play at this level, and we talk about trying to get our players stretched every night by better competition, and these games so far have really accomplished that. This team is a national team. It's not the Olympic team. Some of these players may not survive that long. I mean, the mandate for them is to improve every year and prove to us they should go along in the program each year. So there's risk for the player, and there's also risk for our program, too, because any player that develops too quickly and gets too good too soon, we have a threat of the National Hockey League taking him. So there's risk on both sides.
Canada has regained parity with the world somehow in hockey. Has that indeed happened, and if so, how and why?
Well, I think we're getting closer to parity again with the Soviets and with the Czechs, but it was a very good year for us internationally. We won a lot of the major competitions, but if you analyze the stats that came out of those, the Soviets still had the best goals for and against, and a lot of those things were still very much skewed towards the Soviets. So it was a good year, but I think it was just 1 year in time, and if we duplicate this next year, I may change my mind, but right now I do believe that it was a good year, but certainly not an indicator that we're really on top of it again. We're certainly much more competitive now, though, Gord. I think we go into international competition much better prepared, and I think you're always going to find Canada now will be very, very close to winning, but it's very close competition at that level, and basically there's 3 or 4 teams that could win at any time.
They've knocked a wall out of the Foothills Arena here, and they're expanding that to an Olympic size, international size ice surface. Will your team work out there? Will you play your games there? How will it help you?
We'll play no games there, Gord, but that'll be our full-time training facility for us next year, and we're looking forward to it because it's a full-size international rink to train on daily, and I think it'll make a big benefit to our program. And here in the Saddledome, we're very well treated. We get lots of practice time, but we get very little large ice here. It's basically the North American size ice arena, so having that facility to train in and then play our games in the Saddledome, I think will be a great combination for us and should really give us an advantage in preparing our team for 88.
The Izvestia tournament is probably the toughest in the world. Now, will you be experimenting when you get there, or will you be making an all-out effort to win?
It'll still be, in my mind, very much experimentation because in 2 ways. First of all, we'll try some different things tactically probably to see if they work at that level. And secondly, our team will be very, very young and really overmatched. That tournament is well beyond our means right now as far as competition goes, but that's good for our kids, and we'll just go over there and give it a good effort and try to make it a real good learning experience and put the whole thing in perspective for the players before we go over there because it'll be a difficult tournament. In 83, 84, our Olympic team played in it, didn't win a game.
That's right.
And so you can understand now that our team's much, much younger than that team was going to the same tournament. It'll be tough for us.
Our teams are coming together. The facilities will soon be complete, but there's still much to be done for the staging of these Winter Games. Join us for more inside stories of the Games on the next edition of Inside the Olympics.